Good afternoon and welcome to Community Development, General Government and Housing Committee meeting for Monday, June the 12th. Presently, we have 8 consent items and we have 2 general agenda items. And I'm going to ask the clerk, because I can, ask the clerk to please call the roll of this committee.
Committee Chair, Mayor Pro Tem Adams.
Here.
Councilmember Scipio.
Present.
Councilmember Mundy.
Present.
And Councilmember Clark.
Here.
Thank you. Are there any agenda items, consent agenda items? Councilmember Clark has asked for C5. If not, may I have a motion for approval for the balance of the agenda?
Move approval of the balance.
Second.
It has been moved and properly seconded, and we will vote. It didn't come up.
Mine didn't come up.
Mine did.
Ours didn't. But y'all approved, right? Yes, thank you. Would the clerk please call, thank you, called C5, please.
Item C5, resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with TransTech, Inc. to provide commercial driver license training for City of Winston-Salem employees.
Thank you. Dr. Barnett.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the committee and the council. How are you all today?
All right.
Good.
Thank you for asking.
So what we have before you is, again, item C5. This is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract not to exceed $145,000, which will be paid from the Employee Benefits Fund, which will provide commercial driver's license training for City of Winston-Salem employees who require a commercial driver's license for their position.
Councilmember Clark.
I like the idea. My question is from a logistics standpoint, where is this going to actually be done?
If you all don't mind, I have brought with me, this is Glenda Clark. Glenda Clark is one of our human resources managers. She is over the Ascend Academy at Employee Development, and she's going to talk a little bit about the logistics of the program.
Because we're talking about big trucks, aren't we?
Any
Greetings, Mayor Pro Tem.
Good afternoon.
And meetings, members of the council. So our online portion will be held at Ascend Academy at 2000 Lowry Street. We've booked off time. They will take 40 hours and do online training where they're watching films, and they have 35 quizzes they'll have to pass and then a final exam. After that, then they will be doing the on-road, the practical part with TransTech that's located off of Old Walkertown Road.
Where will they physically practice driving the trucks?
At TransTech off of Old Walkertown Road.
Oh, walking there. Okay, thank you.
It wasn't. That's what confused him.
I think it's a great program, and I look forward to its results, and I will move approval.
I have a motion. Councilmember Mundy seconded. Go, you have a question? Councilmember Mundy.
Just a discrepancy, and I don't know if it's been addressed. My agenda has 100,000, and the agenda here is 145,000. I don't know if that needs to be reconciled some way or another, or if I just had an old agenda.
Did you update?
Yeah, it's 145,000.
Okay.
Yeah, refresh. Do that before every meeting. Do that, everybody, before you read the agendas when they come out on Thursday.
Madam Chair.
My question is, and
And I will
Councilmember
second
Scipio, thank you, Councilmember Mundy. Councilmember Scipio.
I did have one more question about the training. It's for employees whose job requires the CDL, right?
Yes, it's for employees that they're hired, it was a condition of their hire. It's also for growth opportunity as well, and a recruitment incentive for hard-to-fill positions.
So someone who is currently employed but doesn't have a CDL but might want to apply to another position, would they be able to go through this training also?
Yes, once we fill those that were a condition of hire.
Oh, great. That's a great program.
Someone asked me, had we looked at for SciTech, and I was like, I don't know about that.
Well, yes, we did. For Site Tech uses Trans Tech as well.
Thank you. That's what I kind of figured, but I didn't want to answer the question. Thank you so much. Clerk, can we please have a vote, please?
All right, thank you.
Came up again. Yours didn't come up.
What's going on? That's all right.
Just, I'm in favor.
Yeah, me too. We're not going to hold up the meeting because of that. Please call the next item on the general agenda, clerk, city clerk.
Item G1, information on the Human Resources Department general work items.
Dr. Barnett, that's why you stayed up front.
Yes,
because you
ma'am.
knew you were next again. You have the floor. Looks like we got issues. Houston, we have a problem.
Technology is like that.
Go right ahead.
We got plenty of time.
It didn't come up, and I refreshed it.
All right, so since our technology has decided to have a case of the Mondays,
Thank you, sir.
I will ask you all to follow along with the presentation that's listed. It's, I think, the fourth item
Yep.
on the agenda that you all have in front of you.
That was-
So starting with the presentation, this is, you want me to hold? Oh, perfect.
Was it this
That one,
update?
yep.
We're starting with the first,
The fourth.
The fourth attachment.
The
That's
fourth
one that's
attachment.
Presentation.
Are we talking about Google or are we talking about workforce?
It's the internet.
so crazy.
Because I'm on the Google one.
You're on the wrong page.
You need to click on the last one.
back to your-
To the committee meeting.
Yeah, the last one. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Doing all kinds of interesting technology issues to
Let me
do.
see,
We don't have these problems at the finance committee. huh?
Don't count your chickens yet. Your meeting is the same time tomorrow.
it's an internet issue. Just use,
Okay.
can you use that?
But we have our iPads, Dr.
Okay.
Barnett.
All right, so
Okay, yeah, we can do the
perfect.
DocuCam.
we will do the DocuCam. So on slide one, you'll see.
We going to the overhead.
It's
Old school technology.
So the first
There we
update
go.
that we've got here is on financial incentives that this council has approved for City of Winston-Salem employees. Just wanted to bring an update to you all that with the hard-to-fill incentive, that incentive provides it's up to $5,000 in a sign-on incentive to employees in those hard-to-fill positions. So far, we have been able to offer that to 94 employees for a total of $287,554. Every employee that has received the hard-to-fill incentive as of the time of printing was still currently on staff. The retention incentive, so you all approved allowing the city manager to counter up to 10% over a stated offer, so long as that still keeps that employee in their current pay band. We've retained 10 employees with an average of about 14% total increase over their current compensation. And you all also approved a referral incentive that offers city employees an opportunity to earn $1,000 up to 3 times annually for referring employees. Right now, we have 31 referrals, so that is a total commitment of $31,000. And of course, that program pays out an installment. So to date, we have paid out $16,550 in referral incentives. Any questions on the financial incentive? Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Barnett, how many openings do we have that are in the hard-to-fill category that we might be looking towards giving an incentive for?
As of about 12 o'clock today, we've got 27 positions actively posted that are hard to fill. And what we look at for a hard to fill is, are there special qualifications for the position that less than 10% of the workforce is likely to have? Also, for internal and specific positions, has a position been posted before without successful results? Has the position been vacant for more than 150 days? So we use a lot of those things to determine, and we'll take those to the city manager for a recommendation, and he will make an ultimate determination.
Thank you.
Councilmember Monday.
For the hard-to-fill incentives, and I guess anytime we have sign-on bonuses as well, is there any determined amount of time that they have to stay before that is paid out? Just a little safeguard for us.
Yes, sir. There is a 3-year requirement. So if the employee leaves between 1 year or between the date of service and 1 year, they owe 100% of that incentive back to us. If they leave between 2 years and 3 years, if they leave between 1 and 2 years, they owe 50%. And then if they leave between 2 years and 3 years, they owe 25%.
Okay, so it's more of a reimbursement
Yes,
if they
sir.
leave early. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So the next thing that I just thought it was important for you all to see is just a makeup of our current demographics by race. So you will see our workforce right now is 58% white. We are a workforce that is 35% black. 4% Hispanic or Latino. We have what people would call marginal representation in the American Indian and Alaskan American Indian Alaskan for 0%. The Hawaiian Pacific Islander is 0% as well. So this is just, again, a snapshot of where we are as an organization. And I broke it out as well based on gender. So our organization is 73% male and 27% female.
Councilmember Scipio.
Dr.
Yes.
Barnett,
Yes, ma'am.
what's our current workforce right now?
Full-time employees, as of this morning, we had 2,200 and some odd.
And that's what these percentages are based on,
ma'am.
full-time? Okay.
No, those were based on numbers that we had as of May 15th, but they weren't significantly different.
But full-time?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, all of these numbers are based on full-time employees.
Councilmember Monday.
When we see demographics by race, maybe in the future, could you put next to it our city demographics by race as well?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. And so what you have before you now is, again, a call out of our 100 highest compensated employees. And you'll see that 68% of our highest compensated employees are male, where only 32% are female. And then our highest compensated employees, 69% of them are white, 23% are black, and then there's marginal representation in the other racial and ethnic groups. I think you all can probably see it a little better on the presentation that you've got in front of you. Mine's a bit cut off here. And then I provided the exact same thing for the lowest compensated employees. So in our organization, 78% of our 100 lowest compensated employees are African American or identify as black. I can't see the percentage for white. It's on a call out that's
17%.
Thank you. So 17% there, and then 14% are female and 86% are male. Questions on any of that data that I've called?
Councilmember Larson and
Can
Councilmember
you
Clark.
define highest and lowest, what the thresholds are for those categories?
Yes, sir. So basically what I did for that was I took the compensation ranges, the base compensation rate for all of our employees, and I took the highest 100 paid employees. So that started, I think, at I believe it was about $102,000, and then it maxed out at the highest paid employee, which is the city manager. And then for the lowest paid employees, I took, again, the base compensation range for all employees. And right now, for our full-time employees, there is a minimum hourly rate of $15 an hour.
Councilmember Clark?
Do you know what percent of the 100 highest paid are in the police or fire departments?
We have that available, but I didn't bring that with me, so I can get that and bring that back to you.
Councilmember Scipio?
I would like to see of the lowest paid employees what those positions might be.
Yes, ma'am.
One more question.
We will bring that back.
Councilmember Monday?
In the future, could we also see the median income?
Yes, sir.
And how the demographics, male, female, and race compare to just that median income?
I can bring an update with that in August.
Thank you.
That'll work.
So the next call out on workforce demographics that we wanted to bring to your attention is just our workforce in terms of age. There's a lot of discussion right now about aging workforces, and so for our workforce, you'll see that our largest represented population is between 30 and 39 years old. The average age of a City of Winston-Salem employee is 43 and 3 months. So we are a workforce that, my apologies, we're a workforce that spans, our full-time workforce spans across all generations that are currently in the workforce. I've broken out our average salary by age, so you'll see in those kind of banded 10 years, we look at 45,000, just at 46 for employees that are between 19 and 29. Employees in their 30s make an average of about 55,000. Employees in their 40s make an average of about 61,600, and employees 50 to 59 make about 60,000. And then it's lower than that for employees that are over 60. But you all can see that it's just cut off on mine. Any questions on that before I move on to some of our retention numbers? Okay. So we did some tracking on the city's 5-year retention rate. So it was important to me that you all were able to see these numbers from just a retention standpoint of how many folks are we losing on a regular basis. So I went all the way back to 2015. The lower number, so the one that's at the very bottom, that is the total retention of new hires. What that means is that of the new hires that came into the organization in that year, how many of them are currently on staff? And so of the employees that we hired in 2015, only 43 of them are remaining on staff. In 2016, of the 237 new hires that we had, only 46 of them are remaining on staff. And so you'll see kind of where those numbers begin to trend. And we got up to 2021, and I think you all probably have, I'm sorry, that's the percentage, not the number. I apologize. Yeah, that's a percentage. I apologize. Yeah, so you all, again, can see it where we are right now with our current new hires. And that line in the middle is actually the number, not the percentage. So you'll see right now we'll start in 2020, we hired 170 full-time employees. 109 of those employees are still on staff. So we've got there, for that 3-year retention rate, we're looking at about 64%. In 2021, we hired 221 employees, with 137 of them remaining on staff, for a yield rate of 62%. And for employees that came to us last year, and we ran that all the way back to January of 2022 to present, we hired 271 full-time employees, with 235 remaining on staff, for a current 1-year retention rate of 87%. Any questions on that before I move to
Councilmember Clark?
Would you have any idea how these would compare with national trends? They look awfully low to me, but I don't know what a typical company experiences. Because that says 2015 was 8 years ago. Less than half the people we hired 8 years ago is still here, but that may be typical. I don't know.
So unfortunately, private organizations tend to keep it really close to the vest. So usually we're really only able to compare ourselves to our public peers. And where our peers are concerned, I was able to get in touch with the largest 10 municipalities. We actually trend fairly higher than most of those employers. So I wanted to call to your all's attention some of the recruitment efforts that the department has made. I will say to people all the time, I think I have the best team in the business. I will put my team up against anybody's HR team. This past year, my team attended 19 job or career fairs. Those were across regional colleges, local colleges, in-state, out-of-state. We did high school recruitment events, virtual fairs, community events. On the job posting front, we average about 28 job postings per month, and with an average time to fill of 43.3 days. It is not lost on me that the average age of a city employee is 43 and 3 months. And so it's like we are right there with that. So for our hard to fill positions, the average fill time for those is 123.8 days. We actually got that down. A year ago, our average time for a hard to fill position was 193 days.
That's correct.
So where are we posting our jobs? That's a big question, and the answer is honestly anywhere that we can think of. We do regular postings with more than 10 agencies. That includes the American Public Works Association. We're posting on LinkedIn, Indeed. Right now we've got 64 active postings that are out on Indeed. We've used ZipRecruiter as of late. We go to professional agencies. We have changed the way that we do recruitment. Our departments can now request, when they make a posting, they say, hey, these are the 5 or 6 agencies that issue licenses for our group. These are our professional agencies. These are job boards we want you to go out and put these positions onto. And then we take that and we go and we figure out how do we do that. We start the accounts. We go into the handshakes. We are now making a centralized effort for one place for everybody to be able to see where we are doing these job posts. And then on the social media front, and you'll see one of the things we're about to go through, we have started to use social media for recruitment in a very major way. Last year, we increased our impressions by over 500% for our employment-related posts, and I have attached some reports for you all to review. Looking at retention, so from the beginning of last year, we hired 386 employees full-time. 314 of those employees are still with us with a 79% retention rate. That number's a little bit lower for public safety. In the past year, we have hired 73 new hires in public safety careers. Only 49 of them are currently employed with a yield of 67% there. If we control for non-public safety, the retention rate for other city employees is 85%. And the reason that that's important is not to separate us and say public safety is them and we are us. We separate them because we see there is a national trend where people are leaving public safety for a variety of reasons that really don't have anything to do with the organization, but have everything to do with the way that public safety work is occurring in the United States today.
Dr. Barnett, on the public safety piece, almost like what he wants, Councilmember Clark, I think if you break out police and fire, it's totally different, as well as the demographics. And you've heard me say, and the city manager has too, and Ms. Tony, that we need to start getting that right, that we need to intentionally be out trying to recruit diversity in the fire department and not left up to others. That needs to be you guys. You need to go where there is diversity. Latino, Hispanics, Asian Americans, Indigenous, Black people, I don't care. But we cannot continue as a city, and I know everybody's gonna tell me what the numbers was last week. They tell me that every graduating class. But the deal is, we have not done all we can do to make sure that department shows diversity at the forefront. That is why we get so much pushback from others in this community about our fire department And it can be, it doesn't even have to be real. It's the perception. It's the perception. So I look forward to seeing what your department is going to help us do with that. I believe, again, that if we are recruiting people, I also need to see a chart, if you don't have it in here, as to where these people live. You know, we now have dissipated or dismantled that you got to live in the city. I got that. But if people are being hired because they have resources available to get the training before they come and apply for the job and take tests, then that's not diversity and equity. That's something else. So what I'm asking you to do is to figure out, like I've said before, and maybe we have it at Carver, I'm not sure, Councilmember Burke, but if we're not recruiting or helping our young African Americans and Latinos get what they need before they apply for fire, then we'll never see the diversity that we see maybe in some other departments. And it also needs to be handled in other departments. You know, and we all know what departments they are, but I'm expecting you to get us that information as well so the world can see.
Yes, ma'am.
All right? Councilmember Monday.
If you said this, I apologize because I didn't hear it. Are these numbers for retention? Does this filter out retirement?
It does not.
Should it?
I would say my personal opinion is that it shouldn't. When people retire, sometimes they retire out of necessity, and sometimes they retire because they're truly ready to go, regardless of whether that's the case. Because again, we've got some folks on our staff who've been retirement eligible for 20 years. And so someone leaving the organization, I think it is important for our organization to see that just as a person who left, because whether that person retired or they resigned, we have lost institutional knowledge.
Okay, thank you.
But I am happy to provide those numbers if you all would like to see them.
If you think it could make a difference, I mean, sometimes if you're retirement age, there's nothing the company or the organization could do to keep you, as opposed to someone who's going to another job or leaving because they're not happy. So I do see that there's a difference, but I also understand what you're saying, maybe in government work, that we've got people staying much longer after retirement than you might have in the private sector.
Yes, sir. All right, and so I won't go through each of these reports with you.
No, you need to go through them.
Okay.
We only have 2 reports,
Works
both
for me.
information. We got time. Go ahead.
So the first report that you have in front of you, it opens with this. It is the City of Winston-Salem HR General Recruitment Campaign. So this is a campaign that we worked with the Marketing Communications Department to go through with a third-party agency. And the way that they allocated the budget was really through kind of three major places. We went through Meta, which owns Facebook and a host of other social media sites, Google Display, and then Google Search. And so a little bit about what that looks like. You all may have seen some of these. On Meta, it would have looked like that. Right, so it would have been the things that were on the side if you were on a browser. It would have been some of the little ads that you could have clicked on if you were using your cell phone.
I've seen them.
Good. That makes me happy. So also Google Creative, right? So if you were just on Google, right? If you were a person who typed in anything that said Winston-Salem for probably the next week and a half, you were going to see ads from the City of Winston-Salem talking about careers that we have available. We got really creative with it, right? City of Winston-Salem hiring since 1913, right? It's a big thing right now. People are losing jobs, people are cutting jobs. We're not. And that's a big deal for us. So it was important for us that the community be able to see we're growing, we are hiring, we've been hiring since 1913. real job security, come be one of us, right? These are some of the messages that Frank Elliott and his team helped us to come up with to really drive it home. You may have seen, I don't think I've got any pictures of it here, but you may have seen we had a billboard that was on Highway 52 right there at the Innovation Corridor. And we changed that message, I think, every other week or so, right? We had some that were very interesting that were like, this isn't a job ad.
Yeah, I saw.
cityofwsjobs.com, right? So just things that bring people's attention to our recruitment and retention efforts. So the performance of those campaigns, you'll see here. So we don't have access to some of the analytics that we used to have access to, but you can see that for the general population of people that are 18 and older, we're looking at an impression. So when we say impression, that is how many people did this ad get in front of. So we got the ad in front of, on Meta, 703,000, on Google Display, 1.1 million, and on Google Search, almost 25,000. The clicks that we yielded off of each of those, we got 2,000 on Meta, almost 9,000 on Google Display, and over 2,800 on Google Search. And so these are, again, just efforts, ways for us to reach out to people that otherwise we would not have gotten to. And so it was important for us to, again, make that partnership with the Marketing Communications Department, get the information out into the community, and see if we can't drive people to really see what we are doing and what we have to offer to people. Let's see. The report goes into some more detail about age and gender, et cetera. But those are, again, some of the more important pieces that I wanted to make sure that you all were able to see. And then I'll leave you with our top keywords.
Councilmember Clark has a question.
Go back to the previous one, just to be sure I understand these numbers. The cost is the cost per click.
Right here?
No, at the bottom of 1,500. That's the total
Oh, no,
cost.
that was for that part of the campaign. So
Yeah.
for everything that we ran for Meta, it cost us $1,500. For everything we ran for Google Display, that's how much it cost us.
Okay. Do we have any idea if any of these people applied?
We don't. That's the one thing that I guess the analytics really can't get us down to, because we're looking at essentially people's cookies, right? How far did you go into that? Because sometimes people will start an application and not finish it, et cetera.
Because I think the question is, and I like the philosophy, let's try a little bit of everything, but what seems to work is my bottom line question. And I don't know if it's going to job fairs or running ads in the paper or running ads on the internet.
So I don't think we have enough information right now to know, and so I wouldn't even be comfortable saying to you what works right now. I think I will be a little bit more comfortable when I can stand in front of you and say that I've got 2 to 3 years of good data. Then I'll be able to say to you, I think we've got a good idea of what works, and this is where I would like for us to put a little bit more of a push to.
I think Dr. Barnett, again, as a council, they know that we've never compiled this type of information for council to see, as long as I've been on the council, 14 years. I've wanted it. I figured there was some other things that we could look at, and going forward, as the city manager knows, these are the types of reports we're going to be looking for in the committee meetings now, because it's not that we are questioning your abilities to do your job. It's just that we don't know what you know. We only know what I said 14 years ago, what you tell me. But if I'm not going to ask you to provide me with information that I can look at, or all of us can look at in committee meetings together and see the same information versus getting bits and pieces when we make a phone call or send an email, I think it's very important. But I also recognize that you and your team have been extremely busy. I would say kind of at my request, that we start to do these analytics and things, because I know as council members that feel like we aren't doing enough. Yeah, we are. The world changed, people. Everybody is not interested in going to work like we think everybody should go to work. It's not that type of party anymore. And every time I see our ads on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, I see it on all, Instagram, Snapchat. I feel great because I know there was a time very shortly ago that none of that was there. People were relying on us through the newspaper, and nobody even gets that anymore. I haven't seen a paper in my house in weeks. It's online, and that's where that's going. But I've seen the billboard coming down 52. I think we're doing all that we can do right now, and I know that your team is going to come up with more ideas. And if this council or committees have suggestions or opinions of areas that they think we can delve into to be even better, then I suggest they get with you, the city manager, and whatever, and we work on that. Councilmember Monday.
As far as tracking what does and doesn't work, is the question asked when someone applies or takes a job, how did you hear about? It's a bit large margin of error, and it's anecdotal, but it would give us directionally what's working.
That is question 14 on our application
sure
for
is.
employment.
Been asked
And
forever.
Some folks do answer it. Actually, we're getting a lot of we slowly phased in where we made it a mandatory question, but people get around it and they hit that other, and they don't tell us what other was. But we do have some pretty good data over, I would say, at least the last 18 months where people are telling us that they heard about us from social media. But the other part that's really important is when folks are trying to claim that $1,000 referral incentive. That goes a very long way because they can put in that comment what the employee's name is that they heard it from.
Okay.
Councilman McIntosh.
I'm curious why we're not, we don't have any jobs posted on the North Carolina League of Municipalities website.
That's a long story. I know, Mr. Barnett. Go ahead.
I think there's some definitely some conversation for us to have about our relationship with the league when it comes to posting jobs. We always have to consider what is going to be the most cost-effective way for us to publish a job posting. And what we have seen is that the league's job postings have become exponentially more expensive than they used to be.
Correct.
And so sometimes it's cost prohibitive for us to go with the league for postings. But we are using like NC Works, which is the best way for us to get in front of unemployed people in the state of North Carolina. So we are creating new job orders on there literally every single day.
I'm not on the league board anymore. Councilmember Clark is. Maybe that's something he can bring to their attention.
We'll
because
talk
if it's-
offline.
Yeah,
Perfect.
It's not serving our needs. And then my other question was, how do we deal with spikes in pay rates mid-budget cycle? So if we see that, salaries for engineers or some particular position have gone up sort of mid-budget cycle, how do we deal with that?
So is your question about how do we fund it, or how do we, just from an organization standpoint, how do we address that?
How does HR address it? I'm assuming that if it's somebody that we want, then you'll come to us and ask us for the money.
So Mr. Tesh will often hear from us in the middle of the year where we'll say, hey, we did this market study for these positions. We found that, these positions are significantly underpaid. I'm recommending to the city manager tomorrow that everybody in this classification move to this dollar amount. And then Scott scratches his head and he says, where am I going to find this money? And I say, I don't know. But what we do when we're looking at these positions, again, we look at our entire market. That includes the largest 10 municipalities in the state of North Carolina. And Winston-Salem, as you all know, is the 90th largest municipality in the United States. And so we're also benchmarking against numbers 85 to 95 across the United States. So when we see that information and we've done that market evaluation and we go to the manager with our recommendation to make a change to any of those, then unfortunately I'm laying it at Scott's feet and asking him to find a way for us to fund it.
Thank you.
I look forward. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I don't believe so.
I look forward to the reporting of the salary and job study.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay? And I know a lot of people think we don't need to do that, but again, in the world that we live in now, it would be better for any organization to stay on top of where their resources are coming from, particularly human beings. Because if we are only doing a study once every 10 years, and I think the last one was maybe 8-9 years ago,
2017.
2017, that we have to up our game like everybody else to better understand where we are. You know, and again, that's information, again, that I think is very important that this council sees. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
City Clerk, next item, please.
Item G2, update on the Winston-Salem sign ordinance amortization progress.
Mr. Murphy.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council and the committee. If you'll give me a second, mine is physically on, I believe, is on the computer, I hope. There we go. Good afternoon again. I heard you speak of 14 years, and we're going back 16 years here. So I believe there's only one person up there that was on the council at the time, and he's raising his
He
hand.
caused all of it.
This is just an information item. We like to keep this in front of the council since this is something that is somewhat visible with the business community. Of course, in 2007, City Council approved a sign amortization where we changed our sign regulations dealing with the number of freestanding signs, the height, square footages, and the council at the time adopted an amortization period, which was 15 years, and at the end of that 15-year period of time, all signs that weren't in compliance with those newly adopted provisions in 2007 needed to be brought into compliance. And we, since 2018, have tried to be fairly straightforward and aggressive in sending out notices to folks to let them know that, hey, we've done a preliminary survey, we think your sign is out of compliance, and you know, just FYI, you've got until, at the time when we started this, till 2022 to bring your sign into compliance. Of course, then we hit COVID, and you know, the council was agreed with staff, and we gave 2 additional years. Anyway, we're coming up on the June 30th, 2024 deadline. We're a little over a year out. So we continue to send out notices, and that's really what this, the CARF kind of lays out in front of you, the information item lays out in front of you, kind of what we've done. We have successfully brought a number of signs into compliance. If you look at our overall sign inventory and you look at the number of signs out of compliance, we are right at the 80% threshold with a year to go. We're going to send out, we actually have already sent out letters. We'll send out more letters in December. But just to give you a little bit of feel, you know, the number of freestanding signs in 2017 when we did the inventory was almost 3,100 signs. The number of signs that weren't in compliance in 2018, when we completed the study, 1,100 and almost 20 signs were not in compliance. When we completed the survey back earlier this spring, we had that number down to 684. We actually have permitted a number of new signs over the course of time, so we have over 3,300 freestanding signs within the city, and only 684 of those are not in compliance. So again, we're looking at right at 80% compliance rate with a year to go. These are just some before and afters of some of the signs as they've changed over time to be brought into compliance.
Councilman Clark has a question.
If I remember correctly, most of the violations were height.
Most were height, some were the number of signs, and again, you can get creative with that. We have the ability in our, especially, you know, since these are generally commercial signs, we have some special provisions for commercial platting that allows someone to actually go in and create out parcels. Like we have some shopping centers that literally were one large parcel, but you've got a number of businesses that have their own freestanding signs. You can go in and actually create an out parcel. Now, you wouldn't be able to have a 15-foot tall, 75 square foot sign, but you could have your own freestanding sign of 6 feet and 36. So again, there are some creative ways to handle that. Just a couple more images, again, before and after shots. The South Side Bargain Center, that's one where, the sign got a little bit smaller, still a big sign, but again, it was more the height than anything, but it got brought down to meet the
That's on
requirements.
109.
Chris, when you send out the letters, do they actually say what the violation is for the particular sign, or is it just a general statement?
It's a general letter. Again, part of the problem is, and unless we actually go out and survey the property, we have no way to definitively determine whether or not they meet the requirements of the ordinance. We have some tools that we can use that we can approximate height and square footage and those kind of things, but the letter that actually goes out is a generalized form letter addressed to the property owner, but they need to contact us and we can talk them through, and all this is detailed in the letter, but we can talk them through what our findings are and let them know that they're going to need to go to a sign contractor and have them come out and do some actual measurements to verify the size of their sign and then therefore bring it into compliance.
So your basis for the letter is by casual observation? Is that?
Well, again, I wouldn't say casual. I mean, like I said, we have some tools. There's I can't even remember the name of the system that we have, but there's an attachment we can put on our iPad. It measures the distance the way that we are. It basically will then give us a height. But again, it's a plus or minus because it's not survey quality. We can go out and measure the corners with this same thing, and it gives us a square footage. So again, it gets us in the ballpark. But unless you actually do a survey on the property, you're definitively not going to have 100% accuracy, and we don't have the permission to go on folks' property.
Right, okay.
And just one more image there. That's the before and after of University Plaza. Just for information, again, we're going to send out, we sent this batch of letters out. Hopefully that has already generated some calls and comments and questions that our office is dealing with. We'll send out another letter in December. And then whenever June 30th rolls around, we transition to July 1st, we will send another letter. And again, our goal is not punitive. Our goal is compliance. So again, if we have sent a letter out and someone starts working with our office in May trying to get a permit and we go over that magic date of June 30th, July 1st, we're not going to start fining folks on July 2nd. Our goal is compliance. As long as folks are working with us, we're going to work with them. But I think, again, as with most everything in life, you've got the folks who will immediately come into compliance. You'll get the folks that will come into compliance once they get the second letter, and then you have folks that aren't going to come into compliance until we send the letter and say you're in violation, and they're going to say, oh, they really were serious. So again, I think you've got all across the spectrum, but our goal is to not to be punitive. We don't care if we collect a fine, but we want compliance. If we have to take someone to court, we will, but that's not going to be our first step. Our first step is going to be trying to get folks to come into compliance, and this is just one of the tools in our toolbox.
I think you and your staff have done a great job with this. Back in 2018, when we had to deal with how we were going to handle it, and we didn't even know COVID was coming when we set in the time, restraints. But I think in the end, the council, as you said, we don't want to be punitive to people. We just want them to, to come within compliance. And what a lot of people don't even know or realize, because they drive by these signs, that a lot of signs have been changed to come within the compliance rule. And they look real good. I mean, really, they do. So I'm hoping that going forward that, again, you'll be able to generate those other, 300 and something? 600?
600.
600 and something to come on, and let's get this done. Any questions or comments? Councilmember Clark, then Councilmember Monday.
I would like,
And
if you
Councilmember
could give me
Scipio.
a list of the ones in the West Ward, and I think everybody would probably do
I
that.
actually anticipate that. I don't have a list, but I have numbers, because we actually anticipated that might be a question as far as the number of signs in each
numbers
ward. Do what?
Read the numbers out.
Because you guys did give that to us back in 2018, I
I don't know
think.
if I got a problem or not. Go ahead.
Okay, in the North Ward, there are 65 signs not in compliance. In the Northeast Ward, there are 103 signs not in compliance. In the East Ward, 37. In the Southeast, 68. In the South, 95. In the Southwest, sorry, Councilmember Mundy, 191.
Wow.
In the West, 29, and in the Northwest, 96.
I'm okay.
Yeah, we know you are.
Go get them.
Thank you so much, Mr. Murphy. Councilmember Monday, then Councilmember Scipio.
Just to remind folks that the largest retail corridor is in the Southwest Ward, so I think there's a reason for that. What is the price for not complying? I mean, you said take someone to court, but is it a fine if I just say I'm not going to do it?
It's a fine. Essentially, any zoning violation is a $100 a day civil penalty, up to essentially once we hit the 30th day, and at $3,000, we turn it over to the attorney's office, who then takes an action in Superior Court. Once the item's heard in Superior Court, generally speaking, the judge is going to order compliance, and then if they don't come into compliance, we go back and the judge demands compliance. I mean, again, there are avenues, but again, at the end of the day, it's not the fine that we're interested in. It is the compliance, but sometimes it takes the stick versus the carrot.
Thank you.
Councilmember Scipio.
Yes, Mr. Murphy, this is always so interesting. And we don't support the business owners with it paying for any changes in these signs. It's all of their expense, correct?
Correct. I mean, again, there could be small business association loans. I mean, there could be some tools out there, but it's not anything that I'm aware of that the city administers.
So the example that's still up on the screen, University Plaza, that's at North Point, and they lost a tenant, Office Depot closed, and therefore their sign had to change. In that kind of situation, do they contact us to make sure that they're in compliance? I assume they may have had a letter in the past, but is there a way that they contact us to make sure the new sign's going to be in compliance or not?
That's a kind of multifaceted question. To answer your question, I'm sure they got a letter about noncompliance. But again, as we have been through this entire 16 going on 17-year process, as folks come in to modify signs, like the sign on the left, the before image, if, let's say, Office Depot went out of business as they did and they wanted to change that to Joe's Pet Shop, or whatever you want to call it, they would be able to come in and get a permit for that panel change out without changing the sign, but we would put a note on there, because a panel change out, literally you're popping a panel out, putting a new panel in, but on that permit we would make them aware you have to come into compliance by the year 2022. If again, on the image on the right, you see at some point they came through and made the decision, all right, we're going to bring this sign into compliance. So they actually went through that process, and I'm not sure if it was a result of our letter, whether it was a result of possibly a rebranding of the shopping center, a combination thereof. But again, there are lots of incremental steps along the way. If someone has a non-conforming sign and they want to structurally alter it, at that point we make them bring the sign into compliance.
I think you may have answered that. What I heard you say is any change on a sign, they have to come into our office and get some type of permit
They're
to do
supposed to.
that? Okay. So that's the point at which we engage them with any out-of-compliance signage?
Correct.
Okay.
Chair.
Councilmember McIntosh.
So, Chris, if we just take a second to sort of cover the concept of amortization. I mean, this started now 16 years ago, and the thought process behind amortization is to what?
Yeah, essentially an amortization is like whenever you amortize a loan, you essentially you have theoretically paid for the improvement that was placed a long time ago, and you're essentially paying for it over time. And the thought process is for like, especially sign amortization, if you put a sign in, let's say in 2007, right before the rules changed, that there would be a period of time whereby that sign would have, had paid for itself. And so the city would be on, and again, I'll defer to the city attorney for legal arguments, but essentially, the city would be on firm footing in requiring them to change that sign because we've given them a time where they have enjoyed the investment on their property, on the sign. Generally speaking, most amortization periods are somewhere between 5 and 7 years. The city council in 2007 made a conscious decision to give a very long amortization period to avoid arguments related to takings and those kind of things. So essentially at this point, by the time the amortization runs out, we are 17 years down the road and we are on firm footing from a taking standpoint.
Councilmember Clark.
If I could just offer comment, because I was actually in the negotiations on this, and I will say the final ordinance was endorsed by the Chamber of Commerce at the time. The thinking was in 15 years, if there was a sign already up, it's probably rusted away within 15 years, or the business has changed names or whatever, I know of a number of gasoline stations where the branding has changed, so they pretty much had to replace the whole sign. And I still live with that argument that now they're 17 years old, and they've got to be, well, it's about 20% of the signs, but those signs are at least 17 years old, if not older. And also, most of the issues is height. So you don't necessarily have to do away with the sign. You just got to get a shorter post to put it on. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens in 6 months. Go ahead.
Councilman McIntosh.
And then also what Councilmember Clark's saying is, it goes towards the sort of the philosophy of us not being punitive, but just trying to get people in compliance. It also raises the question that we've been dealing with since I've been on council, is how do we let the people in the sign business, because that's really who's doing these things, how do we let them know when there's a legislative change? When we change an ordinance, we used to be able to go, because you had to have a privilege license. The state allowed us to collect $50 or whatever it was, but we had a file of who was in the sign business, who was in the yard business, and we could reach out to those people. We no longer have that, and I continue to want to push Raleigh for the ability to do that.
To answer your question, again, I don't think that was a question, but we obviously we have the folks that we deal with on a daily and weekly basis. Sometimes we'll have out-of-state sign contractors who are who are dealing with national franchisees, but for the most part, generally speaking, they still utilize local contractors. And again, I can't say that 100% all the contractors know, but I would be very surprised if anyone that we have issued a sign permit to in the last 10 years doesn't know about the sign amortization.
Thank you.
Any more comments or questions? Councilmember Monday.
Thank you, Chair. I don't think this would happen a lot, but in the case of a business, a company that's gone out of business, they have a sign, they're gone. Is the property owner responsible for that sign?
The property owner is responsible, period.
Period.
Yeah, so again, like I said, you might have, I'm sure there are contractual arrangements between the property owner and the tenant, but ultimately, from our zoning perspective, it's the property owner who's legally responsible to bring something into compliance.
So we're not going to the individual retailer to begin with. We're going to who owns the property, unless the retailer owns the property themselves.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Murphy. I'd like to wish everybody that's here at our meeting a happy summer until we see you in August. I won't see you in July. But thank you all so much for attending our meeting. Meeting's adjourned.